The caveat is that they're all connected. So shadows kind
Yeah,
of feed from one another in the end, and the gifts feed from one another. It's almost like you tap into the shadow, you turn them all on across the board, and it
yeah.
depends. No matter what key you have your shadow in.
People like you that are enabling great change for others, and just your presence, and just your being. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a celebrity to do it either. You could just be walking down the street or sitting in a room.
And you're making the difference.
Did it. How can I contribute something? And that's a big fear too. It's like, oh, I'm gonna change my city or my town or my country. Like, yeah, it's possible. It starts with one person. The seventh gene key: division, guidance, virtue. The seventh gene key definitely has potent leadership potential, but they're not always leaders per se. They're people with influence. In any group, the seventh gene key carries this power that when it speaks, others will listen.
So culture, it's actually different from what we think of as a culture, and I'll just shorten it here. The sphere of your culture opens or closes you to a calling in and building your fractal line. The group of like-minded, open-hearted companions and allies who will aid you in fulfilling your external purpose in the world. As you answer the inner calling of your vocation, so you send out a message into the cosmos that you are ready for action. One of the most scintillating mysteries of life is that the moment you take the leap, others in your fractal line also do the same. So the culture is literally the group of people that you will attract once you start living your pearl. I mean, yeah, yes. And I want to read it says your pearl sequence will not fully engage in your life until you have moved through your Venus sequence. The Venus work can take some time and dedication. Much depends on your ability to reawaken your self-love and accept and embrace the mental, emotional, and physical obstacles of your early conditioning. You also need to this is in general, for speaking of the sequence in general, and then I'll jump into yours. You also need to heed the warnings in the Venus sequence about becoming overly bogged down in your wounding. You will always know when the pearl is coming alive inside your life because you will find your mind becoming much clearer and more lucid. In the introduction of this book, we spoke on the, okay. So I'm going to read you the line 1, which when I read, I was like, this is so you. Line 1 is individual, and every line is different. So for some keys or some sequences, line 1 means the beginning of it all, the 6th, the maturity of it all. But not every line is the same in every sequence. So that's why there's like multiple books for it. So for you, for culture number 7, the line 1 is individual. The first line is essentially about the individual. This does not necessarily mean that it is selfish, though it may well be self-absorbed. The first line is self-motivated. In the widest sense, this means that it is an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur sets out in the world as a solo player, armed only with their ideal and the impulse to propagate it. If you have a first line culture, then you are a wellspring of something completely new. This will take a great deal of courage because much of our conditioning tells us to follow others and fit in. The first line will have to stand alone in the world with their ideal. The first line, they will have to expose themselves to risk, perhaps to ridicule, and certainly to criticism. However, the beauty of entrepreneurship is that if your ideal is true, very soon you will draw support and recognition from all manner of unexpected direction. As you keep standing behind your ideal, You will watch a fractal organism gradually forming itself around you. This is the miracle of following your vocation and taking the initiative. Allies will keep on appearing with the skills and enthusiasm to help you in manifesting your dreams. Oh, there's so much more. This one is huge. Oh, one more page. So far, so good. I think this is so you. The individual is the core unit of the synarchy. Synarchy is an omnicentric organism, and even though it forms itself into teams, networks, and gene pools, its strength always derives from the individual. In a synarchy, it is always the first line who emanate the initiatives and ideas that will allow the synarchy to gather. The transmutation of collective consciousness has to begin somewhere with someone. If you have a first line, the culture, then you carry a great responsibility to stand alone with your dream and call out to the collective to gather around a higher ideal. You are the cosmic, karmic rallying point. When we look into the history, we often see that the greatest breakthroughs were made by people who were so far ahead of their time that they went largely unrecognized in their own age. This can be the case with the first line, but it need not worry them. Prosperity does not always require recognition. It's a feeling of a deep inner fulfillment that transcends our conditions. The beauty of synarchy is that even though the ideal may have begun with you, it very soon surpasses you as others join you, and the dream takes a greater hold and begin a life of its own. At a certain point in your evolution as a first line, you will therefore have to let go of thinking that it was your idea and that you have any more importance than anyone else in the jigsaw. When a first line attains this realization, then their work in the world is essentially done. This is, however, a huge step for the human ego to take, to bring something so precious into the world and then to step back and let it go. Reading this just breaks my heart already. Your role as the first line is to gestate the dream inside you and then to bring it into the world. Where it goes and how it changes once it is in the world is no longer in your hands. Having said all the above, the first line often does get great recognition. This is why it can be hard for them to let go of control, because recognition can so easily lead to inner confusion. If the first line really looks deep inside themselves, they may realize that although recognition can feel wonderful, it is never the goal. It is simply the perfume of their dream reaching out into the synarchy, and it goes as swiftly as it comes. The real love of the first line is never the result, but the mystery of the creative process itself.
Wow.
Lines are really, really like where the meat is.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
So,
enjoyed the lines so far, as I'm on my third portion of the Venus sequence, about almost halfway. And the line, it took until I got to the Venus sequence to really be like, wow, these lines have some depth to them. Yeah, that's really cool.
how do you so the seventh Jinki shadow is division, gift, guidance, and virtue is Siddhi. How do you think this relates to first you, and is this what you thought of when you looked at yourself and really your almost like, who are you doing all this work for?
Yeah. I've always had difficulty with authority. So just from a personal standpoint to begin with, I've always struggled with authority, with teachers, leaders, in community, or who we're supposed to listen to. I mean, from a very young age, I was like privy to the workings of the political theater, and kind of just like very skeptical. And I think a big reason is because so much of, especially in school, it's very divisive. I mean, you succeed by beating or getting the highest grade, or getting every answer correct. And in the political sphere, it's very obvious. You know, it's red versus blue. And I think I was 16 when I read The Alchemist.
What?
By Paulo Coelho. And that book was beautiful to me because I grew up in a Protestant Christian upbringing, and any talk of like, what do Muslims learn, or what's different, anything like that, it was just shut down, or it was, at best it was shut down, at worst they were like made out to be the enemy. The closest I got was in like social studies, and when I was 12, and my teacher covered the world religions, and he covered Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. I think that was it, but it was enough for me to be like, there's got to be more than just what they're telling me, and there's got to be more religions than this, because he only covered like a few countries in the world. And then I did my own research and found I would just like use Wikipedia. I'd go on Wikipedia and I would look at a religion, and it would eventually say like, but it's based on, or it has similarities to this religion, and then there's a link. And I click the link and I'm like, oh, what's this religion? So I would just like find my way exploring, because I think in my heart it was like, we can't all be this divided. This doesn't make sense. Like, it must be true that it's only because I grew up in southwestern Michigan to Christian parents that I am who I am, and I believe what I believe. And it was like very, very rebellious to say those words and to think those thoughts. And it still is for most people. And then when I got to travel the world, I would meet Muslim kids that were my age, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm only Muslim because my parents, the same as you. Like, I grew up in a Muslim home and it was expected of me, and that's all we were taught. And they're like, I don't really believe it. And I'm like, whoa, this is awesome. Like, you're from Egypt. And I thought that this would be a very difficult conversation, and it's so easy. We're much similar than how it seems. So that's kind of like a brief unfolding of the personal understanding I have of division.
So when you say, do you find, so what is authority to you? What does that mean to you? Someone who is forcing points their point of view on you, or telling you that you're wrong, or someone with the authoritative, powerful position that you consider above or below from?
Authority to me is someone has influence or power.
Who has power over you now? Or let me just rephrase. Do you feel that you still have that feeling of someone having power over you as an authority?
No, not really. No. There's like, yeah, you could throw me in prison for like my beliefs, but it would be much harder it's easy on paper, right? Hard to do in practice. But I imagine like even in prison, like just claiming my freedom and being like, no, like you don't have authority over me. Yes, I understand I'm in prison, but I can still think my own thoughts and resonate at whatever frequency I want.
So does this division of shadow shows up as the battle between someone who is acting as authority? I guess the question is, when does this shadow show up where you have an urge to rebel against the authority?
Like when in my life now, or like this time?
I mean, in general, I'm just trying to understand, when is this shadow actually, what brings this shadow up front? If you are a leader, and this key is the guidance, right? So the key really is the gift. True gift is leading, but often this leading can be based on the shadow. So it almost feels like the blending between the shadow and the gift in this specific key is very hard to differentiate. Or maybe from how I read it is like, it's almost like, now I'm a leader and I'm not hiding my truth. I'm speaking and guiding other people, but that could easily become a shadow itself.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I'm looking at the repressive and reactive. The reactive is dictatorial, and that's easy to identify for most people. But it's almost like power for power's sake. It's almost like it's just this like, and I always hated this answer growing up from my parents, because I said so. It's like, whoa, like you must because I said so, like just because that's how I view it. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if the reason is that you're lazy and you don't want to, but you have to tell me the truth. And it's like, no, because I said so. And I'm like it would just drive me up the wall crazy. So I don't know. To answer your question, there's like an ulterior motive that exists, or it's just as simple as like you, like I don't care if you step in power, just tell the truth, like the reason why, and let people decide for themselves. Like if there's any, and I guess that's the repressive in a way, like you're keeping aspects of it hidden. Like, well, why are you stepping up? Like, what makes you want to lead? And what elements are driving you to keep it hidden? And usually it's based around fear. So it's like sensing this fear, and then sensing like preying on people. I don't know if I'm getting off base from your question. Maybe you could ask it one more way, and I might have been able to nail it for you.
When I read the 7th Jinki, I found it hard for people who have this Jinki. And because it's like you have to be so attuned to yourself to know what is your shadow versus gift in order to differentiate under which frequency you're actually operating. Because it says is that at the core of leadership, at the shadow frequency, lies the fear of losing power, which keeps hierarchy intact. So it's like, if you're leading, by default, you're feeling,
I love that. I almost like, if I can feel someone's fear of losing their position, then I'll push their button. I'll be like, well, let's see how you last. Either I'll push your button so you fall, or I'll push your button so people can see like your true motive and let them decide. it's like that fear of loss of position that drives so much of the world in leadership. And it disgusts me. It's like if we're truly living by the Tao and the way that we should be living by, then it's you lead until you're called to step down, and then you step down. It doesn't need
Which
to
is
be
your
more.
line.
Yeah.
Which is literally your line. You're doing all these pushing buttons for others so people can realize, and you're just stepping down. So literally, you're on the top of the not pyramid, can be reverse pyramid, right? You are leading, or you are having the breakthrough idea of something that you create the little mini or a community around. People find it revolutionary. It's your idea. You are a leader. By default, you're on the top of the hierarchy. At what point you know that you're operating at the gift level until your top of hierarchy takes over, because you have to get attached to that power of it. At
Yeah.
what point you understand that you're in gift versus the power actually taking over because you don't want to let go?
Ooh.
How do you know when to let go?
My mind wants to say that I haven't really led that much. Like I'm not sure I have a collective experience to tell you, and I don't know if that's like a defense mechanism, or I don't have to expose myself or not. I'm also trying to keep thinking, but that did come up.
Maybe not yet.
Yeah, I can think of a few instances when I've like kind of led. I think the trick will be like when you were describing my line one, it's gonna be something that like my heart feels so strongly about, and I bring into the world as my baby, and then now when do I step down or step away? And I don't think I've actually had the challenge and the opportunity for that something that's so close to me yet.
But can you feel it's coming?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Can't you feel like you're gonna come up with such an obnoxious idea? It will freaking disrupt everything. And you'll be like, yeah, let's forge forward. This is the new way. And this is tightly connected to your 55th, actually, which usually they work together in this like sequence. So I'll sign me up for the first row. I want to see what it is. I'll be like, yes, let's go. Oh my God. I can't wait. I honestly can't wait, because the repression of the shadow to me is really sad. It's almost like if this shadow is hidden, repressed in nature, you remain hidden. So you almost never, it's like it says these people carry the genetic imprinting for recognition as leaders, but they remain hidden all their life. It's almost like you're dimming your light forever if you're repressed. And for these people to step into the leadership, they must first recognize the power within. And then for the reactive, dictatorial is like out of control completely. It's like they're master of patterns. They can manipulate others, and that's already another extreme. But if you sit hidden, if this shadow sits hidden and the true gift is really never steps up to the light, it's a loss for many.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know if you're picking up on it by reading it, but I'm lucky to have this as my first that we're reading together, right? But it's the first that we've worked through together where I'm like, I know the repressive nature very intimately. I know the reactive nature very intimately. I know like what honor it is to have it, and kind of like the pressure of like, you better not repress it. Like I can feel like all of these energies at play, and also my own knowing. It's like this knowing of like potential and power, and then on top comes in like, don't become a dictator or live in the shadow and create division. And then there's like the higher realm that's like, you're gonna do it no matter what. So there's there's nothing. So it's just like, when we get into it, I recognize everything, and there's a lot of emotion that's coming up, and my where I'm at right now in my life is like recognition, and then surrender, I guess. Recognition and then surrender. So
But this
I mean,
seventh key, go ahead. The seventh key of your gene key sequence is tied to the work you're doing almost in a community and the people that you're surrounded with. And it's like the people you're surrounded with community wise, people that get attracted to this aura of you operating on your at your gift level. And the gift level is really, in this case, guidance. It's like you're only going to do this alone on your own without being told what to do, because you can't take the other way. And other way automatically almost might be perceived as the authority. But if you think about what you're supposed to do per gene keys, it's almost like by default trusting yourself and loving and nurturing this self-love, you become guidance for others. And it's the gift says true leadership, like true education, does not impose itself on anyone.
yeah.
You're there to to shine as the lighthouse for many boats out there in the sea during the night that need the direction and guidance.
Yeah.
And it's alone, standing on its own, shining bright because it speaks its own truth. And I think maybe it's almost like how I see it, Eric. It's almost like the Venus is completely different thing, which is your karma, your dharma, your creation of intimate relationships, rather than the relationship that you kind of out there shining towards others and return of self to the community and the collective. So this to me is big. I gotta see it as, I can see this in you by knowing a little bit about you.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see it yet. So it's like, I want to see what the groundbreaking thing is, or, what is cooking under your hood, right? So it's almost like, what is your seasonality? Like, I can't wait to see the new way, because I think it's gonna explode out of you. It's just a matter of time. So, and this is going to be a very soft landing for many other people, even though so abrupt for you if you keep like, I don't know, waiting for it to explode.
Right.
Yeah, it says people with the seven gift are strong supporters and implementers of schemes that allow individuals more power, creativity, and autonomy at all levels of society. Like your lighthouse is for others, but your light needs to shine, not to be dimmed. Maybe wipe the thing. Maybe it's muddy, though. Clean it up a little bit. So I don't see repressive nature in you. Maybe it's within the shadow work. I think that's maybe the process that you're internally going through. But this is work for others. This is pearl. This is what you shine for the rest of the world and humanity and all these people on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huge deal. And I love this one too. I love this one. And it ties back to what you were saying. It's just surrender and trust. It says, this is the true meaning of guidance, which is this gift, trusting in the life process rather than forcing matters by taking control. And this ability to surrender to life itself is the foundation of true leadership.
Yeah.
This is you.
Me, and it's not me, right?
Deep down it is.
Yeah. I'm welcome any like shifting that I need to do. But I feel like I've been through enough to know, like, to me, repressive and reactive are super clear now, where it's almost like I've identified it so clearly that I couldn't act in those for very long without like being torn apart from the inside out. And that gives me a little bit of peace with just being like, if I'm called to guide, I'll guide. I'll be a guide for others, and it will be. And there's been times when I've been like sort of a mini guide. Like people have just come up to me and been like, "What do I do in my life?" And I'm like, "Whoa, that's never happened before, but here's what I would do." I think where I get hung up right now is like what you're saying is like, this is huge because it's tied in with your 55th and you're meant to change the world. It's going to be so big and I don't see it yet. And I'm like, well, me either.
Where is it?
I have lots of ideas, but it's almost like this like doubt, or like, I don't know what the word is. It's like, how big is it supposed to be? You
Doesn't
know?
matter. Maybe you'll never find out.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
But we don't know until we try.
Yeah.
We don't know why this is happening until much later. Later, we'll find out.
Yeah. Facilitate. Okay. And I'm sure something? I feel a sense of like you're being guided by others. Like I have so many great mentors and teachers and friends that provide me with guidance. So ultimately, like anything I get, anything I'm able to give to someone else, like in terms of clarity of vision or purpose, it doesn't feel like it's mine. It doesn't feel like it comes out of me. It feels like it comes out of these other people, including yourself. Like you provided so much. So much good.
We're all in this together.
Yeah, great.
Really. Everybody benefits. It's all win-win. Nobody loses in this.
Except for the dictator.
Okay. Do you have like a couple more minutes for the CD?
Yeah, let's jump in. Virtue.
I'm gonna jump. Oh, do you have something to say? Because I just highlighted something in the end that I think it's really, really, really cool.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I think my headsets are dying. Okay, so in the end, the city waits for a specific moment in time to awaken in the collective. So no wonder why you're just boiling right now, but you're not at the, no, you're cooking. You're not at the boiling stage. So it's called the Army, and it's related to the 45th CD. And I represented symbolically by opening of the seventh seal. And we're yet to dive into it. I guess it's like much deeper work as well. So these are the chosen ones. These beings are a collective fractal of leaders in which the cities will spontaneously flower over a cycle of many generations. They will be found at all levels of society. The core essence of each of these beings or leaders is virtue, the seventh CD. The language that unites them is empathy, the 13th. I think this CD is huge. And it's called virtue, and we have many, many different definitions and meanings of it. But I think what this brings to our future generations and genetic change in our codes is really, really the foundation of the truth you stand in your own sense and essence. And here's the best one, and you have kids. The seventh CD concerns the future, and the future is all about the children. One of the first places it will manifest is through parents and teachers. Children who grow up among virtuous people need no other kind of education or guidance. These kids who grow up in the aura of true virtue will take that energy into whatever sphere of life they move through. And in doing so, they will slowly but surely transform the future of our planet. Your children, mister, are picking up on your aura. Or whenever you bloom into your CD, they will like soak it up like a sponge. And they will be the one that will know exactly how to propel different generations to genetic change.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Because to me, that's what resonates, is like this feeling of, I think when you brought it up earlier, you're like, oh, it'll be something that is so close to your heart, like your baby, and you're going to bring it into the world, and then you'll have to let go of it, and it will be so painful. And I'm like, oh, again? Because like, I've already felt this sense of like bringing my heart into the world, and definitely I want to do it again because it helped. But there is definitely like this, there's something deep in me that is a knowing that I won't even have to step into the light of recognition at all. It'll just be like a faint, like, oh my gosh, thank you. And I'll be like, yeah, sure. And then it will be like someone else is doing the thing. And so it kind of gives my heart peace, because I don't necessarily align right now. And of course, everything can change with this idea of like Eric Schroeder, the one that brought us this marvelous thing. Like, I just don't, it just doesn't feel like it's coming in that way. But more so of like secondarily, like through my children who got to witness and absorb the energy and how much work they did, or through my friend, or through the people I impacted. And maybe just a hint of like, when you read history books on like Lao Tzu, and he's like, and I learned from this teacher, and he lists his name once, and that's the only time you see that name in all history books. And you're like, wait a second, like you learned your whole system from that one guy, but it's like that.
Yeah.
I hope.
I mean, yeah, it's the crediting of teachers is really the foundation.
Yeah.
That's the foundation. And I'm learning a lot from the teachers that credit different teachers a lot. And to them, I'm teaching you, I'm not asking for the credits from you, but just know where this originated from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is awesome. The fact that you have three kids.
I know.
3.
I know. And one of them has the 5th pearl, I think. We kind of missed that, but as I'm learning more about the sequences, and we dive into those, I think those relationships and how they show up will be more clear. I do have one short reading here on the city that I find just fascinating, and I love listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
The 7th city which is virtue. Its programming partner is 13, empathy. And this is best understood by the ancient symbol of the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail. Whereas the 7th city pulls us into the future, like the head of the serpent, the 13th city pushes from the past, like the tail. And these two great cities flower simultaneously in a human being, and they concern the collective destiny of mankind, with the 13th city representing the seed at the beginning of time, and the 7th representing the flowering at the end of time. These two cities have a mass of esoteric mythology connected to them. People in whom these states flower act as energetic guides for the entire human race. They have been called many names by many cultures. The keepers of the world, the Illuminati, the shining or chosen ones. But they've also been deeply misunderstood by many cultures.
Bam. That says it all.
Yeah. Thank you for your wisdom and guidance, Milica.
Thank you for your way of thinking and for just being you.
Yeah.
I think you're awesome. Awesome.
My 2-year-old right now, he says this like 40 times a day. You're so cute. I love you. So I just want to pass that along to you. You're so cute. I love you.
It's your energy. It's your energy. It's lighter.
Yeah.
It is. Well, it was great seeing you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Milica.
So we keep going.
Onward. Inward.
Inward, forward, whatever. Thanks, Eric. Enjoy. Say hi to Carly and kids.
I will. Love you.
Love you. Bye, man.